Hey, thank you so much for clicking on the video. Before we get started, there is a major shift coming to the channel come the beginnings of May, but fret not, I will be very active and streaming regularly on Twitch. So if you have not created an account yet and followed me over on my Twitch channel, that is Dark Spider David for the username. So it's twitch.tv/DarkSpiderDavid. We're currently holding a goal of 50 followers, so if you can help out with that by checking out the channel, checking out past broadcasts that I've done, and seeing if you like what you see, hit the follow button. You won't regret it. See you then. This is it. This is the time that we've all been waiting for after 10, practically 11 years at this point, when we had Nick Fury walk in on that end credit scene, ready to talk to Tony about the Avengers initiative. And now here we are, never dreaming that the time would come to culminate it all with Avengers Endgame. And not gonna waste any more time, not gonna beat around the bush, and not going to be delving into any kind of spoilers probably for some time. In fact, I'm probably gonna give this a good 2 weeks or so, giving enough time for some of you guys to be able to check it out, because I understand that scheduling, certain obligations, you're not gonna be able to see it weekend 1, but maybe weekend 2. So those spoilers, all the things that I really want to ramble on and really dive deep into, are gonna have to wait. So go ahead and enjoy this spoiler-free discussion or spoiler-free review of Avengers Endgame. Keeping the plot of the film under wraps as best as possible, let's just say that they took the entire plot arc of Avengers Infinity War, which was originally going to be Infinity War Part 1 and 2, snipped it in half, and now we got the 3-hour conclusion to that whole initial plot that we were left with at the end of Infinity War, with half of the population of the entire universe being gone and the rest of our Avengers trying to fix it. That's essentially the premise, trying to fix it. From that point forward, things go in completely subverted directions that I don't want to disclose, but I'm just going to say that, and this could probably end up being a very short review, but Avengers Endgame is a very satisfying, albeit I don't want to say predictable, but I want to say predictable, but in a good way, in a safe way, in certain avenues. Just like if you guys were fans of Breaking Bad, and when all of us were theorizing how Breaking Bad is going to end, and then some of you might be theorizing right now how Game of Thrones is going to end. Chances are is that some of you who are very intellectual and got the smarts could potentially be even some of the screenwriters on the show are probably thinking the same way that the screenwriters are. And because of that, so many of us who were theorizing how Breaking Bad were going to end, that's actually how it ended up ending. And on the one hand, you can kind of see that as predictability, but on the other hand, it could just be as safety. Endgame kind of tackles a similar kind of approach where it ends in a way that is probably going to nail some of your expectations, some of your theories, but that's only because if they had tried to subvert too many things just for the sake of subversion, then it was just going to throw you off and kind of piss you off, just like certain recent movies have done as well, where they were trying to subvert too many expectations, but they were just being too caught up in that it ended up unsatisfying you. So you could dive deep into your brain about what those set photos were and what certain things in the background could have been pulled from here. But just like they did with Infinity War, there's going to be some images in the trailers and some clips that didn't make it into the final cut and really do keep you at your toes, especially when the movie opens and you think to yourself like, okay, so we're already here. And at that point you think to yourself, well, we do have a 3-hour running time. How are we going to fill that up? And they fill it up with very clever ways to not only wrap up this storyline that was left hanging at the end of Infinity War, but also pay homage to pretty much the entire legacy of this, what they call now the Infinity Saga, starting with Iron Man and now ending with Endgame in a very clever way that is still tied into the plot. You could argue that maybe this could cause a little bit of confusion in a way, and some people might be a little confused. In fact, I was a little bit confused, just a tiny bit in the middle, to the point where even I thought to myself that at 3 hours, this movie's too short. This movie could probably be still a little too short even at 3 hours, because trust me, if you're seeing this movie opening weekend, you are that fan that is devoted to those 3 hours. So much so that maybe when the movie rolls credits, you're going to think to yourself, That was too short. That was 3 hours already. Damn, it's already 5 in the morning. Shit, it's okay. And stepping outside of the shoes of being a Marvel fan and going back into being a critic, I would say that even at 3 hours, there was a little bit of rushness happening in the middle. It's one of my few nitpicks is that in the middle there was a particular element that was being pushed through a little too quickly. Even if you had characters kind of paying attention to how confusing this element is, it's not enough for me to go like, okay, guys, I love you. I don't mind you guys sticking around. You guys paid your dues. You earn your keep. I'm actually down for earning an extra 15 minutes to explain this thing that you just are kind of whizzing by. Please, I don't care if we're here until the sunrise. I want it to make a bit more sense. Well, thankfully, it all comes down to the writers and then the directors, Anthony and Joe Russo, maintaining that prestige that they've developed over time of not directing and writing these movies like a Hollywood conglomerate. They write and direct these movies like fans. You never think to yourself that they don't love this material, because they easily do. And every frame and every portion of this movie, every scene, every performance goes through that. And you get that from Endgame. You got that in full spades in Infinity War, and even with their first endeavor into the MCU with Winter Soldier. But you can definitely see the maturity and the growth of how they've learned to really love every single one of the characters that are part of the MCU. And really balance all out to where it's like, yeah, this movie, again, pays homage to those past 10 years in a very clever way written into the story, wraps up the Infinity Saga really well, and at the same time is a huge, giant 3-hour thank you to all of us who bought the merchandise, who devoted their hours and their time waking up at 5 in the morning to buy those tickets, and putting faith into the projects, even on some of their lesser known things, like maybe the Netflix shows, which I'm not saying that they're low in quality, but I'm just saying that they weren't like the MCU movies, or even some of the MCU movies that even we have to look at and go, yeah, that wasn't the greatest thing ever. But we were still there. We were still there the entire time, and Endgame is that perfect thank you to say, hey, we did it, guys. And we'll see you on the next one. So that takes care of the very emotional, heart-wrenching side of Endgame. And then on the other side, you got very good amounts of comedy to make sure that nothing is super downer, because after all, you do have a talking raccoon, and you have to be self-aware with that, because if you take yourself too seriously, then you end up like the other guy. So they do a good job at balancing out the comedy for the most part. Because again, without delving into too much detail, there's one particular character that I think was treated in a way for a joke that worked really well at the beginning, but then when we saw that joke continuously run even until the very end, I was like, okay, guys, can we switch it back now, please? Like, I don't know. There's something about me that just kind of wishes I would have changed, and I was just like, oh well, I guess I guess I gotta give you guys props for at least committing to it, because then it would have been very artificially like a joke in that sense. So I guess they had to go through with it, because then it would have felt weird to go back on it. And so, with that aside, they were able to balance out the humor, even with half of the world being practically destroyed. You gotta keep some of that humor at certain levels, because that's part of humanity. That's part of the reason why we love these characters, is because they're also human. They're not pieces of cardboard just walking around monologuing. That's what they are. Even down to some of the more villainous characters that we've not only had in MCU, but also within this two-part arc of the Infinity Saga. Well, the Infinity Saga is the entire thing, but this whole thing with Infinity War and Endgame, particularly Thanos, there was a human level to these characters, and something that connected to you, made you go either, okay, you're fucked up, but at least I kind of understand why you're doing this, or I can relate to you in some capacity. And that's where Marvel had the upper hand with these characters, and what made Infinity War and also Endgame that seminal film that you just gotta watch. And if it's not for that, then it's gotta be for the ultimate fuck yeah moments that happen in this movie, because the action still keeps it up, and it's one of the reasons for why those 3 hours go by so quickly, that there's just so many moments that no one's gonna blame you whatsoever if you get up out of your seat and cheer. Because if there was one time to do it, it is with this movie, and this movie alone. I was almost right there. There was one particular moment that legit made me shed a tear, and that rarely ever happens, but I just could not take myself. I felt the lump in my throat. I felt it's, squeezed right here, and I was just like, this is it. This is what it all came down to. And that's where we ended up with this this epic of a finale that is just like, yeah, if there was one thing that needed to happen, it was this one, and it delivered. It fully delivered in spades. So though I did have some of those nitpicks, such as a little bit of confusion with the particular plot element in the middle, and then a character that was treated as a joke a bit too much in my opinion, and then one other character who, like I said, trying to withhold as much information here as possible, but I liked this character better in past Marvel movies, and then for some reason didn't feel very likable in this one. And I was just like, what happened to this person? What happened to this character? And I don't know, maybe it was something that was on the creative side on the script page, or maybe it was something behind the scenes, but something just does not add up. So that was a shame to see. But with those little qualms fully addressed, I remember, I think it was C. Robert Cargill, the screenwriter of Doctor Strange, and I've been following him ever since the Spill.com days with Corey and Martin, aka Leon, over there with Spill.com. And I'm getting intellectual here, that's why I'm crossing my legs. I remember him saying that apparently he did meet up with one of the Russo brothers. I don't know if it was both of them, but one of the Russo brothers very early on. I think it was after Civil War, or during Civil War, that they had the plan for Infinity War and Endgame. And I think C. Robert Cargill told him that if they can pull off Infinity War, Endgame's gonna be a walk in the park. And there was no question that this movie was gonna be bad. It was never gonna be bad, because it really was one giant 5-hour, 6-hour film cut down to 2 films, one being 2.5 hours and the other one 3. And that's ultimately what we ended up with here in Infinity War. And sure, for several different people, there's probably going to be one element or two that's not going to be up to par, whether it be, like I said, some plot elements or the way they treated certain characters because there's just so many, or, something, even if it's a small little nitpick, down to a cosmetic issue. It's still going to be successful in so many others. Even down to the way it wraps, that you think, like I said, is played a little safely, but would you have wanted it any other way? I certainly wouldn't have done otherwise. And this is a movie that I'm going to take with myself, in my heart, knowing that this is ultimately not only a love letter to Marvel fans and a big homage to the past, 10-year, 11-year lead up to this moment, but also hopefully an inspiration to say that, hey, these universes that were scoffed at back in the 60s in comic book form, that were scoffed at in animated form on the television, and now in the cinematic, in theaters, with certain generations and certain naysayers, my parents being one of them, the possibilities are endless. And that's why I'm going to be giving Avengers Endgame a 9 out of 10. I already pre-ordered the Steelbook. 2 copies. And 2 Target exclusive 4K little booklets that look pretty badass. I suggest you jump on those if you're going to be getting them, because I'm pretty certain they're going to sell out ASAP. Yes, pre-orders are already up. It's not even a promotion or anything like that. It's actually a word of caution. Alright. Don't make me disable the comments, guys. But I'm now throwing it back to you. What did you guys think of Avengers Endgame? Needless to say, keep it spoiler free, because this is the end all to be all. So, give your initial impressions in the comments if you have seen the film. If you have not seen the film, what are your expectations of the film from a critical standpoint? Not specific plot devices or character arcs or stuff like that. Just overall, how you're gonna feel about the film. Let me know in the comments. Make sure you like and share the video. More importantly, follow me on all my other platforms like Instagram and Twitter at DarkSpiderDavid, and then twitch.tv/DarkSpiderDavid, where I'm going to be playing some more Mortal Kombat. I'll see you guys there. In the meantime, take care, and hopefully I'll see you guys in the movies. Bye-bye. The best way I can put it is that pretty much the entire 2/3 or so of Season 2 is just comprised of 14 episodes as opposed to the Season 1 13, is comprised of an overarching plot called Neogenic Nightmare, if I'm not mistaken. And trust me, when you're finished with this plot, you're going to be so sick of two particular words, neogenic and recombinator.
Neogenics.
Neogenic device?
Neogenics is involved.
Neogenic recombinator.
Neogenic treatments
Out of the recombinator. Neogenic treatments.
recombinator.
The recombinator.